The sky above Mars colony turned strange that day. Jack Miller stood at the main observation window, coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. Then the alarm blared through the station. "Commander Miller to the bridge now," the computer announced. Jack ran. The corridors of Mars Defense Station Alpha felt longer than usual. When he reached the bridge, the screen showed what everyone feared might come someday. Alien ships. Many of them. "How many?" Jack asked. Officer Beth Adams looked up from her screen. "Over 200 ships, sir. They appeared at the edge of Pluto's orbit 10 minutes ago." "Have they made contact?" "No, sir. They're just waiting." Jack looked at the ships on the screen. They were unlike anything humans had built. Long, sharp vessels that reminded him of ancient swords. They formed a perfect line at the edge of the solar system. "Send word to Earth. We have visitors." Within hours, every human settlement from Mercury to the moons of Neptune knew about the aliens. Earth sent its best diplomat, Laura Fields, to make first contact. Her ship, a small vessel called the Peacekeeper, traveled toward the alien fleet with a crew of 20. Jack watched from Mars as the Peacekeeper approached the largest alien ship. Communications were open for all stations to hear. "This is Ambassador Laura Fields representing Earth and all human colonies. We welcome you to our solar system and wish to establish peaceful relations." Silence followed. Then a voice replied. It spoke perfect English, which scared Jack more than if they had used an alien language. "We are the Vespari Dominion. Your territory is now under our claim. You have 30 days to surrender all planets, moons, and stations. After that time, any humans remaining will be removed." Laura's voice remained steady. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. We wish to talk, to understand each other. Maybe we can." "There is no misunderstanding." The Vespari voice cut in. "We have studied your broadcasts for 50 of your years. We know your languages, your weapons, your weaknesses. You will surrender or be destroyed. That is all." The transmission ended. The Peacekeeper turned around and headed back toward Earth. Jack called an emergency meeting with his officers. "They've been watching us for 50 years, he said. "Why come now?" "Our colony ships," said Peter Chen, head of intelligence. "We've started sending people beyond our solar system. They probably see us as expanding into their territory. But we haven't gone anywhere near any inhabited worlds," said Beth. "They don't care," Peter replied. "From what I've seen of their ships, they're at least 100 years ahead of our technology. They're used to taking what they want." 3 days later, Jack received orders to attend an emergency summit on Earth. Leaders from all human settlements gathered in the old United Nations building in New York. Laura Fields showed images of the Vespari ships. "Their weapon systems are unlike anything we've seen. Our best estimates suggest they could destroy our entire fleet in hours." General Roy Wilson stood up. "So we surrender. Is that what you're saying?" "No," said Laura. "I'm saying we need to think differently. Fighting them head-on would be suicide." Jack looked around the room. Fear showed on every face. Humanity had never faced an enemy like this. Their colonies were young, their military still developing. Earth itself had only recently united after centuries of fighting among themselves. "What about our new battleships?" someone asked. Admiral Paul Green shook his head. "The Vespari ships make them look like toys. We need something they won't expect." As the meeting ended without solutions, Jack walked to the window overlooking New York City. Millions of people lived there, with billions more across Earth and the colonies. All of them now had only 27 days before the Vespari would attack. "We need a miracle," he whispered to himself, "or a really good trick." He didn't know then that the answer would come from Earth's past, not its future. From the misty highlands of an ancient land and the warriors who once fought against impossible odds and won. The meeting room fell silent. 26 days remained before the Vespari attack, and no one had any good ideas. Jack Miller sat at the back, watching the world's leaders argue. They had been at it for hours. General Roy Wilson slammed his fist on the table. "We need more ships. More weapons. We don't have time." Admiral Green replied, "We can't build a fleet in 26 days. As the argument continued, a man in an Earth Defense Force uniform stood up. He had been quiet until now. Major Alan Carter cleared his throat. "Permission to speak, sir." General Wilson waved his hand. "Go ahead, Major. At this point, I'll listen to anything. My family comes from Scotland, sir, the Scottish Highlands." People looked confused. What did this have to do with aliens? Alan continued, "For centuries, Highland clans fought against armies with better weapons and more men. They used the land, surprise attacks, and fear. They rarely won in open battle, but they survived when they should have been wiped out." Jack leaned forward, suddenly interested. "The English had better weapons, more soldiers, and more money," Alan said. "But Highland warriors used what the English didn't expect. They attacked at night. They used the weather. They played pipes that scared their enemies before battle." "Major," General Wilson said, "we're fighting aliens in space, not redcoats in Scotland. The principle is the same, sir. The Vesperi expect us to fight like every other planet they've conquered. What if we don't? What if we fight like Highlanders?" The room grew quiet again, but this time people were thinking. Jack stood up. "He's right. The Vesperi studied our regular military tactics. They haven't studied our history." Admiral Green looked doubtful. "You want us to play bagpipes in space?" "No," said Jack. "I want us to think like people who had to fight a stronger enemy and win. The Highlanders did that for generations." General Wilson thought for a moment. "We need more information. Get us an expert." 2 days later, Dr. Olivia Wright walked into the war room. She specialized in military history, particularly battles where the weaker side won against the odds. Highland warfare wasn't just about fighting. She explained to the room full of military leaders. It was psychological. Clan warriors painted their faces. They screamed war cries that echoed through valleys. They wore bright colors to stand out, not to hide. Fear was their ally. Jack nodded. "The Vesperi want us to be afraid. But what if they were afraid of us instead?" "Exactly," said Dr. Wright. "And Highland clans didn't rely on central command. Each clan made its own decisions but worked toward a common goal. If the Vesperi cut off our leaders, the fight would continue." Alan rolled out a map of the solar system. "We have asteroids, moons, and planets to hide behind. We have old mining ships that don't look like warships. We have tools the Vesperi might not see as weapons." General Wilson stood up. "Major Carter, Commander Miller, Dr. Wright, I'm giving you 5 days to develop a full strategy based on this Highland warfare concept. If it makes sense, we'll implement it immediately." Jack and Alan left the meeting with Dr. Wright. They walked to a small office where they could work without interruption. "My grandfather told me stories about the Highland clans," Alan said. "How they moved like ghosts through the mist. How a small group could hold off hundreds." "We need to adapt those stories to space," Jack replied. "And we need to train people quickly." Dr. Wright pulled out her tablet and began making notes. "We'll need small, fast ships. People who can think independently, and something to replace the bagpipes." "No," Alan smiled. "We'll use actual bagpipes. Through space, sound won't travel, but we can broadcast the sound to their ships. If they've studied us, they've never heard anything like Highland pipes in battle." For the first time since the Vesperi arrived, Jack felt a small spark of hope. They wouldn't win with bigger ships or better guns. They would win by becoming something the Vesperi had never faced before. "Let's call it Project Highlander," he said. The work began. 20 days until the Vesperi attack. Deep in the Canadian Rockies, a new kind of army was forming. 500 volunteers from Earth and the colonies had arrived at the secret training base. They came from all backgrounds: soldiers, miners, pilots, and even some civilians with special skills. Captain Ethan Ross stepped off the transport and looked around. He had expected a standard military base. Instead, he saw a camp that looked strange for space warfare training. People practiced with both high-tech weapons and what looked like old-fashioned fighting sticks. Someone played bagpipes in the distance. "Welcome to Highland Base," said Major Alan Carter, walking up to greet the new arrivals. "You're here because you volunteered for a mission with very low survival odds." "Are the odds really that bad?" asked a young woman next to Ethan. "Yes," Alan said honestly, "but they're better than the 0% chance we have fighting the conventional way." Alan led them to a large room carved into the mountain. Maps of the solar system covered the walls. Dr. Wright stood at the front with Jack Miller. "Each of you will be assigned to a clan," Dr. Wright explained. "A clan is a small, independent fighting unit. You'll train together, fight together, and if necessary, die together." Jack stepped forward. The clans of Old Scotland had their own colors, their own symbols. Each of you will do the same. Your clan will make its own decisions in battle while following the larger strategy. Ethan raised his hand. "Sir, I've been a Marine for 10 years. This doesn't sound like any military structure I know." "That's exactly the point, Captain Ross," Jack replied. "The Vesperi know our military structure. They expect a chain of command they can break. We're giving them something different." The volunteers were divided into 30 clans of about 16 people each. Ethan found himself leading Clan Fraser. His group included pilots, engineers, a doctor, and several Marines like himself. Training began immediately. They learned to fly small, fast ships that could hide behind asteroids and moons. They practiced quick attacks before disappearing again. They studied the ancient Highland Charge, adapted for space combat. The Highland Charge was terrifying to enemies. Dr. Wright told them. Warriors would appear suddenly, screaming war cries, moving faster than seemed possible. In space, we'll use short-range jumps to create the same effect. Each day, the clans competed against each other in battle simulations. They learned to paint their faces and ships with clan colors. They practiced broadcasting bagpipe music just before attacking. Ethan struggled with the concept at first. "This feels like playing dress-up, not war," he told his clan. "That's part of it," said Maria Lopes, his second in command. "The Vesperi think they know what humans are. We're showing them something different." In the evenings, they receive reports about the Vesperi. The alien ships had begun attacking small outposts near Neptune. They were efficient and merciless. No survivors were reported. 18 days before the deadline, Admiral Green visited the base. He watched a training exercise where Clan Fraser successfully destroyed a much larger enemy force by using asteroids as cover and attacking from multiple directions at once. "Impressive," he told Jack afterward. "But will it work against real Vesperi ships?" "We'll find out soon," Jack replied. "The first clans are ready for deployment." That night, Ethan gathered Clan Fraser. "We ship out tomorrow. First stop is Triton, one of Neptune's moons. We'll join 4 other clans there." "Will we get to paint our faces?" asked Ben, their youngest member. "Yes," Ethan replied, surprised to find himself looking forward to it. "Blue and white, the colors of Clan Fraser. And we'll play the pipes so loud the Vesperi will think the gods are coming for them." For the first time in his military career, Ethan was part of something that wasn't just about having better weapons or more soldiers. This was about becoming something unexpected, something the enemy couldn't prepare for. The Highland brigades were ready for war. Triton was cold and dark. The moon's surface was covered in frozen nitrogen, making it look like a giant snowball. 5 Highland clans had set up their base inside an old mining facility hidden beneath the surface. From here, they could watch the Vesperi ships that had begun to gather around Neptune. Ethan Ross checked his clan's equipment one last time. Their ships were small and fast, painted with blue and white stripes. Each member of Clan Fraser wore a matching pattern on their spacesuits. They looked nothing like regular Earth forces. "They're coming," announced Sergeant Heather Morrison from Clan MacLeod. She pointed at the scanner. 3 large Vesperi ships heading toward Triton. "They must have detected the old human outpost." "They don't know we're here," said Ethan. "They think this place is abandoned." The 5 clan leaders gathered to finalize their plan. This would be the first real test of Highland tactics against the Vespari. "Remember," Ethan told his clan, "we don't fight them directly. We hit and run. We confuse them. We make them think we're everywhere." The Vesperi ships landed on Triton's surface about 20 miles from the hidden base. Scanners showed alien soldiers exiting the ships, moving in perfect formation. They carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. "Time to welcome them to our moon," said Maria Lopes with a grim smile. The clans moved out in different directions, using the underground tunnels that miners had dug years ago. Clan Fraser took the north position. Clan MacLeod went south. The others spread out to east and west, surrounding the Vesperi landing site. Ethan gave the signal. Across all channels, bagpipe music began to play. The ancient sound of Scotland the Brave echoed across Triton's airless surface, transmitted directly to the communication systems of the Vesperi suits. The alien formation hesitated. "Now," Ethan commanded. From 5 different directions, the Highland clans attacked. They erupted from hidden exits, their small ships zooming low across the surface. They fired not at the alien ships, which were heavily armored, but at the Vesperi soldiers on the ground. Heather Morrison led her clan directly through the middle of the Vesperi formation. Her pilots fired with perfect aim, taking down a dozen aliens before they could respond. Then Clan MacLeod disappeared back into a tunnel entrance. The Vesperi tried to regroup. They formed a defensive circle, weapons pointed outward. That's when Clan Fraser attacked from above, dropping explosives that had been disguised as ice chunks. The blasts scattered the alien formation. "Pull back," Ethan ordered as the Vesperi ships began to turn their main weapons toward his position. Clan Fraser retreated, but Clan Wallace was already attacking from another direction. The bagpipes continued to play, growing louder with each attack. For 3 hours, the battle continued this way. The clans never stayed in one place long enough for the Vesperi to target them. They attacked, retreated, then attacked again from somewhere unexpected. They used Triton's low gravity to make jumps that would be impossible elsewhere. The Vesperi, trained for direct combat, seemed confused by these tactics. Their formation broke down. Their communications, intercepted by Earth technology, revealed growing frustration among their commanders. "What are these humans doing? This is not proper battle procedure." Finally, the Vesperi retreated to their ships. They had lost nearly half their ground forces, while the Highland clans had suffered only minor injuries. As the alien ships lifted off, one was damaged by a final attack from Clan MacLeod, causing it to crash back onto Triton's surface. Back at the hidden base, the clan leaders gathered to assess their first victory. "They didn't expect this," Ethan said, wiping the blue and white paint from his face. "They expected us to fight like soldiers, not like clans." Jack Miller's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "Well done, Highlanders. The Vesperi are sending reports back to their main fleet. They're confused and angry. For the first time, they're afraid of humans." Heather Morrison smiled. "Wait until they meet the rest of the clans." 16 days remained until the Vesperi deadline. The Highland strategy had passed its first test. Now the real war would begin. News of the victory on Triton spread quickly among Earth forces. More volunteers joined the Highland brigades. Training bases opened on Mars and the Moon. 15 days remained before the Vesperi deadline, and humans were fighting back. Lieutenant Samantha Reed had a new idea. As head of communications for the Highland brigades, she had studied how the bagpipes affected the Vesperi during the Triton battle. "Their hearing is different from ours," she explained to Jack Miller and Alan Carter. "The pipes hurt them physically. It disrupts something in their nervous system." "Can we use that more?" asked Jack. "Absolutely," Samantha replied. I want to put external speakers on all our ships. We'll play the pipes during every attack. And I have another idea too. Samantha showed them recordings of old Highland warriors, their faces painted with bright colors, screaming battle cries as they charge. The Vesperi are very visual creatures. They use color patterns to show rank. If we mess with that, we can confuse their chain of command. Within days, every Highland clan had adopted Samantha's ideas. They painted their ships in spacesuits with bright clan colors. They installed speakers to broadcast bagpipe music and war cries. They learned to scream the ancient Gallic battle cry, Boath no bass, victory or death, as they attacked. The Vesperi continued to advance through the outer solar system. They attacked the mining colonies on Jupiter's moons next. But this time, the Highland clans were waiting. When the Vesperi ships approached Europa, they found no resistance. The colony appeared abandoned. The aliens landed their forces and began to secure the area. That's when the ice beneath them seemed to come alive. Clan Campbell, their ships painted green and black, burst from hidden tunnels under the ice. Bagpipes blared through the vacuum, transmitted directly to Vesperi communication systems. The warriors of Clan Campbell had painted their faces green and black to match their ships. They screamed their battle cry as they fired. The Vesperi soldiers froze momentarily. The sound hurt them. The sight confused them. By the time they recovered, half their forces were down. "Keep moving," shouted Greg Peters, leader of Clan Campbell. "Don't let them target you." The clan zigzagged across Europa's surface, never staying still. When the Vesperi adjusted to this attack, 2 more clans appeared from different directions. The aliens couldn't track them all. A Vesperi commander, his armor decorated with red symbols of high rank, tried to reorganize his troops. A Highland warrior with similar red markings painted on her suit approached. The Vesperi hesitated, confused by the familiar markings on an enemy. That moment of confusion was enough. The warrior, Nicole Adams from Clan Robertson, took down the commander with a precise shot. Similar battles happened across the Jupiter system. The Highland clans used the moons, the asteroids, even Jupiter's radiation belts to their advantage. They never attacked the same way twice. They never followed patterns the Vesperi could predict. After each battle, the clans gathered to share what they learned. They discovered that the Vesperi couldn't track objects well against bright backgrounds. They found that the aliens relied heavily on communication with their fleet. They noted how the bagpipes seemed to cause the aliens physical pain. Samantha Reed collected all this information. "They're starting to fear us," she told Jack during a secure transmission. "We intercepted their communications. They're calling us demons who appear and disappear. They say we make sounds that tear at their minds." Jack smiled. "That's exactly what we want. Fear is a weapon too." On Earth, military leaders watched with growing hope. The Highland Brigades had not won the war, but they had shown it could be fought. They had turned the Vesperi's certainty of victory into doubt. 10 days remained until the deadline. The Vesperi High Command, angry at these unexpected defeats, decided to send their elite warriors to crush the human resistance. The Crimson Guard, who had never failed in battle, prepared to enter the solar system. The real test of the Highland strategy was about to begin. The Vesperi Crimson Guard arrived with terrible power. Their ships were larger and faster than any seen before. Their weapons could destroy a small moon. They wore blood-red armor that seemed to glow from within. They had conquered 1,000 worlds, and now they came to end the human resistance. Colonel Frank Howard watched them from his hidden command post in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. As the overall commander of the Highland Brigades, he had been expecting this escalation. "They're angry," he said to his officers. "That's good. Angry enemies make mistakes." The Crimson Guard's first attack destroyed the human base on Ganymede. It was a show of force, meant to terrify. But the base had been evacuated days earlier. The Highland clans relocated to hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt. Frank called all clan leaders to a secure channel. They want us to be scared and fight defensively. Instead, we'll draw them into the biggest trap we've ever set. The plan was dangerous. Frank needed the Crimson Guard to enter the asteroid belt, where thousands of giant rocks provided cover for the Highland clans. But the Vesperi were cautious now, keeping to open space where they could use their superior weapons. "We need bait," said Ethan Ross, whose clan Fraser had grown famous after several victories. "I have an idea," replied Dr. Kelly Daniels. She had been studying captured Vesperi technology. They track ship energy signatures. We can make them think we have a major fleet hiding here. Kelly's team modified mining equipment to emit energy patterns similar to warships. They placed these devices throughout the asteroid belt, creating the illusion of a massive human fleet gathering for attack. The Vesperi detected these signals. The Crimson Guard, eager to destroy the human forces in one decisive battle, moved into the asteroid belt. 20 huge ships spread out, searching for the enemy fleet. "They took the bait," Frank said quietly. "Now for the trap." Throughout the asteroid belt, Highland clans waited. They had spent days placing mining explosives on key asteroids, creating lanes that the Vesperi would likely follow. As the red ships moved deeper into the belt, Frank gave the signal. The first explosion surprised the Vesperi. Asteroids shattered, sending thousands of fragments into the paths of their ships. The Crimson Guard's large vessels couldn't maneuver quickly in the tight space. 2 ships collided with rock fragments and suffered damage. That's when the Highland clans attacked. They came from all directions, small ships weaving through the asteroid field with practiced ease. Bagpipes wailed through the communication channels. Warriors with painted faces and bright clan colors swarmed around the larger Vesperi vessels. Clan MacLeod, led by Heather Morrison, targeted the engines of the Vesperi flagship. "Hit and away," she ordered. Her pilots fired precisely, then disappeared behind asteroids before the Vesperi could respond. The Crimson Guard fought back with powerful weapons, but they couldn't hit what they couldn't track. The Highland ships moved too quickly, used the asteroids too effectively. Frank watched the battle from his command post. "Trigger the second phase," he ordered. More explosives detonated, changing the paths of larger asteroids. The Vesperi found escape routes closing, forcing them deeper into the belt or into areas where Highland clans waited in ambush. For 6 hours, the battle raged. The Crimson Guard lost ship after ship to the combined assault of Highland tactics and the dangerous environment of the asteroid belt. Their perfect formation broke down. Their coordinated attacks became desperate individual efforts to survive. When it ended, the Vesperi had lost 15 of their 20 ships. The survivors retreated, badly damaged. The Highland Brigade suffered losses too. 3 clans had been completely destroyed, and many ships were damaged. But they had achieved what seemed impossible. They had defeated the elite Crimson Guard. The surviving Vesperi ships limped back to their main fleet. They carried with them stories of humans who fought like nothing they had encountered before. Humans who used the very rocks of space as weapons. Humans who moved like spirits and attacked like demons while their strange music tore through Vesperi minds. 5 days remained until the deadline. The Vesperi High Command faced a situation they had never experienced: the possibility of defeat. 4 days before the Vesperi deadline, the mood on Earth had changed. People who had prepared for the end now dared to hope. The Highland Brigades had proven that humans could fight back. Now it was time to push the aliens out of the solar system completely. General Lisa Powell stood before the world leaders in New York. As the head of Earth's combined military forces, she had a bold plan. "The Vesperi are wounded and confused," she said. "For the first time in their history, they face defeat. Now is the time to strike at their heart." Lisa showed a map of the solar system. The main Vesperi fleet had pulled back to Saturn's orbit after the Crimson Guard's defeat. 7 massive command ships directed their forces from there. "If we can take out those command ships, their entire invasion falls apart," Lisa explained. "I propose Operation Highland Charge." The Highland Charge was the most famous tactic of ancient Scottish warriors. They would run full speed at their enemies, screaming war cries, moving faster than seemed possible. Now, General Powell wanted to apply this concept across the entire solar system. All Highland clans will attack simultaneously, she said, not just the command ships, but every Vesperi vessel in our system. They won't be able to coordinate a defense. Jack Miller, now promoted to admiral after his work developing the Highland strategy, nodded in agreement. The Vesperi expect us to be cautious after our victory. They'll never expect us to charge directly at their strongest points. The plan was set. Every remaining Highland clan prepared for battle. Over 100 clans now existed, each with their own colors, battle cries, and fighting styles. Captain Doug Mitchell led Clan Buchanan, one of the most successful units. His clan had been chosen for the most important and dangerous mission, attacking the Vesperi flagship directly. "We'll need to get inside," Doug told his clan members as they prepared their ships. Their vessels were painted purple and white, the colors of Clan Buchanan. "Once we're aboard, we find their supreme commander and capture him alive if possible." Early on the morning of the attack, Admiral Miller addressed all Highland warriors from Earth Command. "Today we show the Vesperi what humans truly are," he said. "Not an easy conquest, but the descendants of warriors who never surrendered, even when facing impossible odds. Today we charge." At exactly the same moment, Highland clans across the solar system launched their attacks. From Mars to Neptune, from the asteroid belt to the moons of Saturn, human ships raced toward Vesperi positions. Bagpipes played across all channels. Warriors with painted faces screamed ancient battle cries. The Vesperi, still recovering from their previous defeat, were completely surprised by this coordinated assault. They had expected humans to hide, to defend, to use guerrilla tactics again. Instead, humans were attacking everything at once. Clan Buchanan approached the Vesperi flagship, hiding among debris from earlier battles. When they were close enough, Doug gave the order to move at full speed. 6 small ships shot toward the massive alien vessel. "Play the pipes," Doug shouted, louder than ever before. The sound of Scotland the Brave blasted from their ship's speakers. The Vesperi flagship tried to target them, but the small human vessels moved too quickly and erratically. Clan Buchanan reached the flagship's docking bay. Using captured Vesperi codes, they forced the bay doors open and flew inside. Once there, clan members in spacesuits jumped from their ships and began fighting their way through the vessel. The Vesperi crew was not prepared for combat inside their own ship. The Highland warriors, moving in tight formation, pushed toward the command center. Their faces painted purple and white, they fought through corridor after corridor. Doug reached the bridge first. There stood the Vesperi supreme commander, a tall alien with elaborate markings on his armor. The alien raised a weapon, but stopped when Doug pulled out bagpipes he had carried with him. Standing on the bridge of the enemy flagship, Doug Mitchell began to play. The haunting sound filled the room. The Vesperi commander dropped his weapon, overwhelmed by the sound that caused physical pain to his species. Across the solar system, other Highland clans were achieving similar victories. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Vesperi were losing a war, and the sound of Highland bagpipes marked their defeat. 2 days after Operation Highland Charge, the Vesperi war fleet began to retreat from the solar system. The capture of their supreme commander and the destruction of 5 of their 7 command ships had broken their will to fight. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vesperi Dominion had lost a war. On Earth, celebrations broke out across every city and town. People who had prepared for the end of humanity now looked to the stars with pride. The Highland Brigades returned as heroes, their clan colors flying, bagpipes playing victory tunes. In New York, at the old United Nations building, a different kind of battle took place. Diplomat Ryan Garcia led negotiations with the captured Vesperi leadership. The Supreme Commander, now recovered from the bagpipe assault that had incapacitated him, sat across the table with his remaining officers. "Your Highland warriors fought with honor," the Supreme Commander said through a translator. His voice sounded like stones grinding together. "In all our conquests, we have never encountered such tactics." Ryan nodded. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned many ways to overcome stronger enemies." The negotiations continued for days. The Vesperi, though defeated, were still powerful. They controlled hundreds of star systems. Earth needed to ensure they would never return as enemies. Major Alan Carter, whose Scottish heritage had inspired the Highland strategy, attended the final meeting. He watched as the Vesperi Supreme Commander signed the peace treaty. "Your warriors remind us of our own ancient past," the alien leader said to Alan. "Before we became conquerors, we too had clans who fought with passion and music. We had forgotten this part of ourselves." The treaty established a new relationship between humans and Vesperi. Earth's sovereignty was recognized. The aliens agreed never to attack human worlds again. More surprisingly, they offered an alliance against other threats in the galaxy. "We respect strength," the Supreme Commander explained. "You have earned your place among the stars." As part of the agreement, a cultural exchange program was created. A group of Vesperi warriors requested to learn Highland fighting techniques. They were particularly interested in the bagpipes that had proven so effective against their species. 1 month after the signing, Alan visited the new training facility in Scotland. Real Scottish Highlands now served as the backdrop for an unusual sight: alien warriors learning to play bagpipes. Their attempts produced sounds even stranger than the traditional instrument, but they practiced with determination. "I never thought I'd see this," said Jack Miller, standing beside Alan as they watched a Vesperi warrior attempt a Highland dance. "We went from facing extinction to teaching aliens how to play the pipes." "That's the real victory," Alan replied. "Not just surviving, but changing how they see us, changing how we see ourselves." Across Earth and the colonies, Highland culture experienced a renaissance. Clan structures remained part of the new human military. The painted faces, the battle cries, the independent yet coordinated fighting style, all became standard training. Bagpipes were installed on every human warship. Earth began to explore beyond the solar system, no longer afraid of what waited in the stars. The Highland Brigades led the way, their clan colors flying proudly. On the anniversary of the Vesperi retreat, a special ceremony took place at the ancient battlefield of Culloden in Scotland, where Highland clans had fought their last stand centuries ago. Representatives from every new space clan gathered with actual Scottish clan descendants. Vesperi delegates attended as honored guests. As the sun set over the Scottish Highlands, hundreds of bagpipes began to play in unison. The sound carried across the ancient battlefield and up toward the stars. Major Alan Carter smiled as he watched human and Vesperi standing side by side. The aliens who had come to conquer had instead found something unexpected: a worthy opponent who became a valued friend. Earth had not just survived, it had earned respect among the stars. And it all began because humans remembered their past and introduced their enemies to the Highlanders.